Hello everyone, it's Monique Renewed. Welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be all about the Daniel fast, what a Daniel fast exactly is, how to complete a Daniel fast and make sure you don't fail at it like I have twice before in the past. I can finally say this is the first time that I've actually completed the Daniel fast successfully. I have learned a lot throughout this fast, so we're gonna get into that. And I also have a freebie for you down in the description box. It is a Daniel fast meal planning template, and it is full of meal ideas that you can use during your Daniel fast if you plan on embarking on that for this season. I have done all the legwork for you. I know for me personally it was really difficult to think about meal ideas that I wanted to make because I was not accustomed to eating like this, so that's why I felt like I was not successful in completing the Daniel fast the first 2 times that I have attempted it. But this time I actually made it through the entire almost 21 days, so maybe like 20 and a half days. I had to go out of town like the last day, so that's when I ended it. So anyways, you can get your freebie down below in the description box. It is a ebook with pictures and meal ideas that you can do very simple and very easy for those of you who are busy moms who tend to get overwhelmed easily with a lot of details. I try to make this as concise as possible just to like go with the flow of things to incorporate into your life. So I hope you enjoy that. And then I will also get into how this Daniel fast has personally changed my life and the way that I especially see food nowadays. So let's get into it. What exactly is a Daniel fast? First, we have to get into who is Daniel in the first place. Daniel was a man, I'm pretty sure a young man, who was taken captive into Babylon during a period when Israel was in exile. God's people wasn't listening to him, so he sent them into exile and people were capturing them and taking them into their own country. And Daniel and his friends were some of those people from the tribe of Judah who actually got captured, transferred into Babylon to serve King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar, he is a stubborn, ruthless king, okay? He sought these fine men to work in his palace, but first they had to go through a training period, and that training period involved eating his type of foods. A lot of time these foods were dedicated to their gods. They worshiped many gods. I'm pretty sure Baal was one of them. Baal was a common lowercase god that was described in the Bible, but Daniel was determined not to worship their gods, not to defile himself by eating these type of foods. So he rejected that, and he told one of the palace officials that he was not going to eat this food and to only serve me vegetables and to see how I would do and to test me on it. And sure enough, this is the first record of a type of fast that Daniel did, was only eating vegetables and water for 10 days. And he was actually seen to be more vitalized and strengthened just by eating only the vegetables rather than the rich foods that the king was eating and that he was serving. And just by eating vegetables alone, Daniel was shown and proven to be stronger than the other men. To me, that just showed how determined Daniel was to stand up for his belief and his faith and to stand by Jesus regardless of what anybody had to say. And this was not an easy time period to live in. This was the type of time period where kings would kill off people for no justifiable reason. They would throw people into a lion's den just for entertainment, and this is exactly what happened to Daniel as well. To defy a king was a very serious thing. The officials themselves were scared and didn't want Daniel to do it, but they took him by his word and he was correct. That, to me, that's just synonymous in today's society, how we enjoy these rich and processed foods, especially in America, due to convenience and lifestyle. Most of the time we succumb to these processed foods. We have turned away from God-given food that's given to us by nature and that revitalizes our bodies down to our cells, and we could see people becoming sick because of the food that they eat. This fast really had me thinking deeply into that and how we have strayed away from eating what is good to us. If you even see like the fruits and vegetables nowadays, the other day I was just thinking how there are no seeds in any fruits, no seeds in grapes, oranges, mandarins. You will barely find a seed in anything, okay? And it was just kind of strange to me how you can go to like other countries that people consider to be poor, but yet their foods are natural and they're thriving and they're living to be 100-something years old. So that's why I always say be careful who you call poor, because they may be rich in other aspects that you're not seeing. They are rich in other areas of their lives. They're not suffering with stress and mental health and having to take 10 million chronic pain medications and chronic disease medication. So yeah, they might not have the materialistic things that we have here that's mostly ran off of debt, okay? But they're rich in family, friends. They go outside all the time. They're outside in nature. The other day I went outside because it was actually felt good for once during this whole winter. All of a sudden I felt so happy and so amazing. So sometimes I be thinking I'm just meant to be outside every once in a while, because being stuck in the house is not it. You'll be trapped in your thoughts all day long and then wonder why we're suffering with mental health and all these diseases and stuff like that. We barely get outside of our house. So like I would say, these people are out and about in the markets or whatever. They're cooking their food each and every day because they don't have refrigeration. So you think they're poor because they don't have electricity, but meanwhile they're eating fresh foods every single day and they're not gaining 1 pound. But then why is it so hard for us to lose 10 pounds? Anyways, I just went off on a tangent. Okay, so Daniel, he's very admirable to me because he was a man that was very strong in his faith. Even facing death, he never denied God. He never rejected God. Him and his friends said, even if God doesn't save us, we're willing to die for God. But we know he can save us if he wanted to. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down to you. We're not going to bow down to your gods, right? The king, ruthless self, threw Daniel's friends inside of a furnace that was turned up, what did it say, 10 times hotter? It was so hot that the people that was handling the furnace got burned alive. Meanwhile, they're probably terrified, right? They're like, it is what it is. We're gonna go in this furnace. And guess what? There was another one in the fire. His name was Jesus Christ. Okay, and is Jesus Christ. He was there with them and they did not burn up. They didn't even smell like smoke when they left out the fire. Nebuchadnezzar was so shocked that he was like, everybody hail Daniel's God. Everybody hail their God. This is the one true living God. But what was so funny is that he turned back around and started idol worshiping again. Nebuchadnezzar represents those of us who are so wishy-washy in our faith. One day we're like, yes, amen, God. The next day we're like, let's go get Pizza Hut. One day, oh, fruits and vegetables. Next day, oh, let's go get Chick-fil-A. I had Chick-fil-A the other day, mind you. We all fall short of God's glory, right? But he shows us these examples in the Bible to show us that we can have a strong mind. We can have discipline. We can have consistency. We can have willpower. We can say no, and to not fear of the consequences of what you think that might happen, but that are really threats at the end of the day, because God will always be by your side through every situation. Okay, and then the second time that you see Daniel give up rich and satisfying food was in chapter 10 when he did a 21-day consecration for the Lord. This was after the fact that he saw these terrifying visions of the future. So he decided to set a period of time of 3 weeks to pray for his people because of all the things that God showed him. So he wasn't even praying for himself. He was praying for other people during this time period. You know, it was his right to eat these foods if he wanted to, but he said, no, I'm gonna give this up for the sake of something better and greater than myself. And every day Daniel would have a period of time where he would set aside that he would open up his window and start worshiping God. People saw this and they decided to snitch on him and told the king that, hey, this dude Daniel is worshiping God even though you told us to worship this statue. And Daniel still kept doing it. He didn't care. And guess what? Nebuchadnezzar threw him in a literal lion's pit. But guess who has dominion over the lion and reign over the lion? God. So Nebuchadnezzar couldn't really do anything that was more powerful than God at the end of the day. So God actually shut the lion's mouth. Daniel wasn't harmed. So each situation that the devil may put you through to try to get you to compromise, to try to instill fear, it's not going to work, because God is greater than any devil. He's greater than any King Nebuchadnezzar that has all this power, rule, and authority. They can't touch you because God is way bigger than all of that. How does a Daniel fast relate to us, and why should I do a Daniel fast? To me, I think this is very parallel to our modern day society, because if you think about it, everything is spiritual, even down to the foods that we eat, you guys. Everything in life starts in the spiritual realm first. So when God created the world, he created the plants, the vegetation, the fruits, the vegetables, the sun to help grow the vegetables. I even heard that the moon has something to do with it. There's like a farmer's almanac that helps you grow vegetables according to the moon phases or something. It's so crazy how God is so intentional and how this world works and how he created us. He created us down to the molecular level of our cells, and the natural foods that he provided were made for our bodies. So what the devil wants to do, he wants to pull us away from God's original design as much as possible. So what does he do? He creates man-made fake food for us to ingest that's making us sick. These fake seed oils, GMO, pesticides, everything is 1,000 ingredients just to get like a piece of protein bar. Ingredients you can't even pronounce. Yesterday I actually made bread. Guess what was in the bread? Water, honey, yeast, flour. We like it when these foods last forever, of course, because of our modern day society and for convenience sake, which I understand completely. We live in this world, so we have to make a way for our progression, but food is not meant to last forever. The thing is, because we have gone so far away from God's original design, of course we have to work 10 times harder because we keep creating more problems for ourselves. It's almost like we have to create another solution for the problem that we already made, if that makes any sense. It ends up backfiring and harming us in the long run. I feel like it's important to set aside a period of time to go back to God's original design and reset yourself to eat more natural foods. Of course, in the Daniel fast, you can't have any meat, any dairy, any added sugar. Anything that's added sugar, so like honey, agave, maple syrup, even if it is 100% natural, there's no added sugar except for the sugars that are naturally found in foods such as carbs and fruits, which fruits are a carb, but you know what I mean. You can have whole grains, you can have vegetables, fruits, and anything like plant-based that's not artificial. That's like the Daniel fast general list. It is hard at first, which I feel like when I rewatched my video that I made a couple of years ago of me doing the Daniel fast, I had to laugh at myself because I was saying, oh, I made a salad but I put cheese in it. That's the compromise that I'm talking about. It's like you have one foot in the world and then another foot in God's kingdom, but God is like, no, I want all of you whole and together. I want your entire heart. I don't want you to be compromised here, there, everywhere, because in the long run that's not going to be good for you. Because you're doing this for 21 days, your taste buds have a chance to reset. And what I find is that I began to love food in its most simplest and basic form. I'm telling you guys, I was eating broccoli by itself. I was eating mushrooms by itself. I was eating plantains by itself. I was just enjoying food in its natural, simple form. I felt like when I first attempted this fast, the first 2 times, even recently last year I attempted it, but I see where I went wrong. I was buying like a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of fruits, a whole bunch of vegetables, but I had no clue what to do with it. I ended up like stressing myself out and getting overwhelmed. What am I gonna make? And it pulled my attention away from God and my focus. This time I was more intentional on planning out, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to eat. I wanted it to be so basic. You guys, I made soup and I ate that for lunch and dinner. Yeah, I was not playing. I was like, I'm gonna keep it as basic as possible. And for breakfast, I would switch it up, you know, every once in a while. And I'll actually get into some of the recipes later, but I just wanna show you sometimes doing too much can actually be a detriment in the long run. So I made sure to plan it out. I did all my thinking beforehand so I could just relax and flow in God and whatever He has to tell me. And it worked. I wasn't thinking about food. I wasn't thinking about what was gonna be my next meal. How can I make this Daniel fast friendly? Is this Daniel fast friendly? What if I fail again? Like, I wasn't thinking about all of that. My food was already done. It was already prepped, made with natural ingredients, and I could just spend my alone time with God in prayer and worship, and that was it. And just repeat it day after day. I'm not gonna say it wasn't hard. Some days I did want to quit, and what it really taught me was emotional regulation. Every time I felt myself getting frustrated, Chloe Yasmin actually, she said every time she would get upset or sad or whatever, she would open the Bible and see what God had to say to her. So I started doing the same thing. I would open the Bible, and I kid you not, it would be exactly related to what I was going through. It's so amazing how God does this and how detailed He is, because sometimes you don't exactly know where to go to in the Bible. So I just opened up a random page. I would read the devotion and what it was talking about scripture wise, and it would be literally related to what I was going through. It's so amazing. Okay, so how to prepare for a Daniel fast. First of all, I like to write things down. I'm a big note taker, so I wrote down, okay, what can I eat during the Daniel fast? What can I not eat? I mostly ate soups, so I needed vegetable stock, I needed potatoes, corn, beans. So first, write down your meals. What are you gonna eat for breakfast? What are you gonna eat for lunch? What are you gonna eat for dinner? Now, I didn't want to think of 3 different meals each day, so I combined lunch and dinner together. I made soups and I ate it for lunch and dinner. And then for breakfast, I would either eat a loaded oatmeal bowl with like berries, apples, peaches. I even made like a berry compote that I would usually make for my oatmeal, but except for I didn't add sugar. I would repurpose something. So if I made a berry compote for my oatmeal, I would also use it on top of my pancakes. And then speaking of pancakes, I made a oatmeal porridge. So I blended some soy milk, dates, and some oat flour. I put it in a saucepan and made a porridge out of it, and I sprinkled some raisins and some cinnamon. But then something said, I feel like it was God, like something said, turn this into some pancakes. And I was mind blown, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a 2-for-1. I can repurpose this for something else. So then the next day I put it on the griddle and I made pancakes out of it, y'all, and it was really good. So I repurposed the porridge mixture and made it into pancakes. And then I sliced some bananas on it, and then I put peanut butter on it, and it was pretty good. I also added baking soda. And that's the thing, you can't expect things to be exactly how the processed foods were, because you know pancakes out the box mix is typically fluffy or whatever. These were more dense and not as fluffy, but you know, it's okay, it's natural. You can't expect things to be perfect. When you see like organic or farm vegetables, like stuff that's made from like a local farm, you can see the different variations, you can see the odd shapes and the different colors, and that's how it's supposed to look. Kind of like us. It's imperfect, but it's perfectly imperfect. It's meant to have different shapes and sizes and colors. It's not all meant to be uniform and perfect in one color. Have your grocery list, okay? Make you a grocery list so you're not spending a crazy amount of money. I would buy like every piece of fruit and vegetable that I like and then have nothing to make at the end of the day. It made no sense. Have like a grocery list of what you want to get for the week. You don't have to get all 3 weeks in 1 week worth of groceries, okay? If you're gonna make a certain recipe, think of the ingredients that you're gonna need and write it down so that you have your list with you when you go to the grocery store. And be sure to download my ebook in the description box. I have all the meals that I made, and I actually used meals that I made during the first fast that I did, and also included the ones that I made in this fast. So there'll be more details in the ebook, so be sure to check that out. For snacks, I ate things like popcorn from the kernel, y'all, not from the bag that has 10,000 grams of butter in it. So you do need a popcorn machine to make it. You can actually buy like a glass jar or container that's a popcorn maker from like Amazon or Walmart. You could put a few kernels of popcorn because they like multiply in size. I don't know how that works. I always wonder that, like how come you could put a few kernels and then it pops to like a whole bunch of popcorn? I don't know. I did that and I sprinkled some tahini on it and I ate that as my snack. One of my favorite snacks, oh my gosh, is this date Snicker, y'all. So it's just basically dates that you cut in half. You put natural peanut butter, no sugar added, inside the dates, and you sprinkle it with like walnuts or almonds if you want. This was a good snack. It makes a good pre-workout as well. Even when I'm not fasting, I still like to eat this. Like a lot of these meals I've incorporated into my everyday life, and that's how I feel like one of the ways that the Daniel fast changed me was that I'm also incorporating these habits into my everyday life. Like for example, today I made a soup with no meat in it, just because I didn't really want to. Not to say I don't like meat, I love meat personally, but sometimes it's nice to take a break from it every once in a while. Speaking of pre-workout, God has been convicting me to decrease my caffeine intake, and when I was doing research, there was this lady that I came across. Her name is Karen Hurd. You guys look her up. She actually saved her infant daughter from dying from pesticide poison. They were spraying inside her house with pesticide poison to get rid of some bugs, and it ended up poisoning her infant daughter. And the doctor said, well, she's gonna die, and she did not accept that fate. Okay, she turned her daughter's fate around. Guess what saved her daughter's life? Guess. I'll give you 2 seconds. Beans. Beans, you guys. Beans. I could not believe. I was mind blown. I was like, you cannot be. This is why God is the ultimate doctor. Some things are just in your face, but it's waiting for you to discover it. But we're too busy being too distracted by other things that's being thrown at us that we don't discern what God has already put on this earth for us to heal us. Beans, y'all. So what the beans did is that it detoxified her liver and it got rid of the pesticides. Meanwhile, these doctors, trained medical practitioners, told her that her daughter was going to die. And she read a book in the library because she was scrambling doing research trying to save her daughter's life. She did it via beans. I was floored. I was like, God, you were so good. So with the pre-workout, God was telling me to decrease my caffeine intake, and Karen Hurd actually said something to the effect that caffeine can mess with your hormones, especially with estrogen. With the beans do, it helps detoxify excess hormones. So if you find yourself being bloated a lot, especially right before your period, during your luteal phase, that could be a sign that you have excess hormones. And I get bloated all the time right before my period. So I want to incorporate more beans to see if it can help with acne. I get a lot of hormonal acne and like acne scars, excess hormones and the moods and stuff like that. I have a feeling that it's gonna work. I've been incorporating like more chickpeas. I put beans into my soup that I just made. It's a butternut squash soup.
Vegetables.
Yeah, vegetables. I pureed some navy beans in it, and you can't even taste the beans. That's what's so funny. I've been making chocolate chip chickpea cookies. Y'all, I honestly love stuff like this, okay? I be nerding out over like nutrition and medical stuff. Okay, the next thing to prepare for this so you won't fail, I had to decaffeinate myself. So if you are an avid coffee drinker, if you drink teas with caffeine in it, girl, you better stop drinking that stuff like 3 days before the fast. Me personally, I get pounding headaches when I don't drink coffee. They say it constricts your blood vessels, so that's why you get the headaches. I told myself I'm gonna stop drinking the coffee like 3 days before the fast so that I'm not getting a headache throughout the fast, and it worked. I would say write down your meal ideas, your meal plan, get your grocery list together, get your list of Daniel do's and don'ts when it comes to the foods. And then I also took inventory of what was in my refrigerator that I needed to maybe freeze or throw out so that it wouldn't go to waste. If I had like bacon in the refrigerator, I would put that in the freezer or whatever. I just took inventory of what I already had in the house that I can use for my fast. So if I had like pasta sauce, it had to be 100% pasta sauce, no added sugar. Then I can use that. If I had any canned beans, I would use that instead of buying duplicates of stuff. So yeah, I took inventory. In my ebook, you will find a grocery list. I actually also made a pre-filled grocery list as an example of what you can get that correlates with the meal ideas that I gave you. So you can use your iPad and write down what you need and what you're gonna get and what you're gonna make. And in the last week of the fast, I actually had planned on eating soup for the entire 3 weeks for lunch and dinner, just a different one each week. But then I had decided to make this pasta, this caramelized onion creamy pasta, and you guys, this pasta was banging. I'm actually gonna make it again next week when I'm done with this soup. That's how good it was. I actually started craving these type of foods now. That is included in the ebook as well. It was just like a discovery of all these amazing things and how I can incorporate it into my real life. Next is prayer and worship. I basically kept my routine the same. In the morning, I would do my devotional before work and my prayer, and then I would do my Bible study after work, and I would write down the scripture that stood out to me, what I felt like God was saying through that verse, and how I can apply it to my life. And then sometimes during lunch, like in the beginning, like in the first week, I would read the book of Daniel just to see, you know, what he was going through and what was happening during his time period and what God was teaching me through that. Just maintaining my relationship with God and doing my regular routine with prayer and worship. During the last couple of weeks, I felt like God was telling me to pull away from all the social media and the YouTube. I kind of limited my screen time with that, and I would just listen to books while I was working and stuff. If you have a Kindle and if you have the Alexa app, you can actually have Alexa read books to you. Someone said this on TikTok and I have been hooked since. So it's like having Audible, but it's through Alexa. You would just go through your books and music and you would see your Kindle library through the Alexa app, and you would just hit on the book and Alexa will read it out loud. So I read like the most books I've ever read in a month through this Alexa app during my Daniel fast. I think I read like 7 books that month. It was kind of crazy. So I would just do things, alternative things, rather than watching YouTube all day. Now don't get me wrong, I've learned a lot of stuff through YouTube, but sometimes it's nice just to look at something else for a change. So that's what I was doing. During this time, I would just try to quiet my mind. Like I would just have nothing going on and just let my mind rest. And that is when I found like God would deposit like the most ideas into my head, like the most amazing and brilliant ideas. For example, I made this life manager spreadsheet and I keep an inventory of all my food items that are in the freezer, in the refrigerator, or in the pantry, and I would keep track of it that way through the spreadsheet, and it would sync with my iPad and my phone. So like if I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, okay, do I really have any of this left? Because I would always buy duplicates of things. So this helped me reduce trying to figure out what I had and what I didn't have, and reduce me buying duplicates and wasting money. And then I also keep like an expense spreadsheet on there, an expirable spreadsheet. So if things are coming up that are expiring, like say my registration, my ID, passports and stuff like that, important documents like that, I would track like the expiration on there. So that's why I call it my life spreadsheet, because I keep like everything on this spreadsheet. Okay, how this Daniel fast has changed me. Like I said, discovering things that were almost hidden in plain sight, like the miracle of beans. When I was listening to Karen Hurd describe her story, it really inspired me to kind of research more about beans and how it can help your body naturally and how it helps detoxify your liver. My habits, learning to dedicate time to things that I need to do rather than what I want to do. So like I said, limiting my screen time and probably turning to things that will help focus my mind. Like I've been into adult coloring books lately, so turning into like things that will stimulate me rather than overstimulate me, if that makes any sense. Reading, writing, drawing, coloring. doing activities like that. And this fast had also helped me to appreciate simplicity and consistency. Before, I would meal prep and I would just disregard the meal prep sometimes because I got tired of eating it, or I didn't want to eat anymore, or I wouldn't take out food. So this helped me to appreciate like the food that I did have in the house, rather than keep going out eating and enjoying processed, highly palatable foods and processed foods that aren't necessarily good for my body and that actually drain my energy, to be honest. Which is so funny because I had made a template of things that drain your energy and things that give you energy, and food was one of them. I noticed that when I eat, let's say like pizza, this happened to me the other day, not too long ago actually. I had eaten some pizza because I got the kids pizza, whatever, and I noticed that I was getting acid reflux or like heartburn. You know, when it starts like almost feels like it's coming back up and it's burning your throat. And it's just so funny how a few slices could just change your whole body like that. Rather, if you just eat the natural foods that you had made at the house, it's not gonna mess you up like that. So I began to be more consistent instead of in and out, up and down, all around the world like King Nebuchadnezzar. And I began to be more steady and still, and that has been a really good thing for me. Another thing that I had mentioned earlier was the emotional discipline portion of it. I wasn't as dysregulated because I would just open up my Bible to see what God had to say, and it would just calm my fears and my nerves with whatever I was going through at that time. And I actually want to make a separate video about this later on, how the Daniel fast has changed my habits emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So stay tuned for that. That's all for today's video. I hope this helped. Don't forget to check out your free ebook down below in the description box. I love you guys. Stay blessed and catch you guys next time. Bye.